I stood by my living room window again, staring across the street at his house, like I'd done too many times these past few weeks. My heart felt heavy, guilty even, because I shouldn't have been thinking about him at all. My name is Audrey Sinclair. I'm 43 years old, and I've been a pharmacist in this town for almost 15 years. After my divorce, I told myself I was done with complications, done with men, done with letting anyone get close enough to hurt me again. But lately, something has been shifting inside me whenever I see Marcus Reed. I shouldn't feel this way about my neighbor. He's just the divorced mechanic across the street. We've waved at each other for years, exchanged polite hellos, but that was it. I kept my distance. I had to. Because the moment he looks at me a second too long, my breath catches in a way I haven't felt in years. It's dangerous, this quiet curiosity, this warmth that creeps in when I remember the low sound of his voice or the way his shoulders fill out his worn flannel shirts. I feel so guilty even admitting this, but I keep wondering what it would be like if someone actually saw me. Not just the helpful pharmacist who smiles at everyone. The real me. The lonely me. If you're watching this and you've ever felt that pull towards someone you know you shouldn't want, please subscribe. It makes me feel a little less alone sharing these secrets with you. That crisp autumn afternoon, the golden leaves were drifting across my yard when I heard the knock. 3 firm raps on my front door. I opened it, and there he was, Marcus, standing on my porch, rubbing the back of his neck with a tired expression. "Audrey, sorry to bother you," he said, voice rough. "My back's killing me again. Been working under cars all week. You got anything stronger than what I've been taking?" I should have just handed him some muscle relaxants and closed the door. Instead, I heard myself say something I never planned to say. I heard myself say, "Why don't you come inside for a minute, Marcus? I can give you something better than pills, if you trust me." He looked surprised, those tired brown eyes meeting mine for a second longer than usual. "You sure?" "I don't want to impose." I stepped aside and let him in. The door clicked shut behind him, and suddenly the house felt smaller. Warmer. He smelled faintly of motor oil and fresh autumn air. I led him to the living room, my pulse already beating a little too fast. We sat on the couch while I went through my bag of samples. As I explained the best muscle relaxant options, he kept rubbing his lower back, wincing. The conversation drifted so easily. He told me how long hours under cars were destroying his back, how he hated taking pills because they made him feel foggy. I listened more than I spoke, watching the way his shoulders tensed when he moved. Then, without thinking it through, I said softly, "You know, I learned some basic massage techniques years ago for people with chronic pain. If you're comfortable, I could try to loosen it up a little, just for a few minutes." The silence that followed felt heavy. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in the air between us. "You'd do that?" His voice was low, almost disbelieving. I nodded, my cheeks warming. "Only if you want, no pressure." He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "All right. Thank you, Audrey. Honestly, I don't know the last time someone offered to help like this." He stood up and pulled his flannel shirt over his head, revealing a simple white undershirt that clung to his broad shoulders. I tried not to stare, but my eyes caught the strong lines of his back, the way years of physical work had shaped him. My breath caught. Heat rose slowly up my neck. I told him to sit on the ottoman facing away from me. When my hands first touched his shoulders through the thin fabric, I felt him tense, then slowly relax under my fingers. His muscles were tight, knotted. I worked gently at first, pressing carefully, feeling the warmth of his skin through the cotton. Neither of us spoke for a while. The only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves outside and our breathing. My mind kept whispering that this was crossing a line. He was my neighbor, divorced, just like me. I shouldn't be noticing how good it felt to touch him. I shouldn't be wondering what he was thinking. But I kept going. My fingers moved lower, working the stiff area around his lower back. A quiet sigh escaped him, deep and relieved. That sound did something to me. My stomach fluttered in a way I hadn't felt in years. "God, that feels incredible," he murmured, voice husky. "You have no idea how much I needed this." I smiled even though he couldn't see it, My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. The room felt warmer. The space between us felt smaller. My hands moved with more confidence now, but inside I was trembling with a strange mix of nervousness and something far more tempting. I knew I should stop soon. I knew this was dangerous. But when he turned his head slightly, our eyes met again, and neither of us looked away. I smiled softly, even though my heart was racing. "Turn around properly," I whispered. "Let me do this right." Marcus shifted on the ottoman, and I moved closer behind him. My hands returned to his shoulders, pressing a little deeper this time. The warmth of his skin through the thin cotton made my fingers tremble slightly. I focused on the knots, working them slowly, carefully. Every now and then he let out a low breath, and each one sent a small shiver through me. Minutes passed in silence, the kind of silence that feels louder than words. The autumn light coming through the window painted soft golden patterns on the floor. I tried to keep my mind professional, but it kept drifting. How long had it been since I touched someone like this? Not as a pharmacist helping a customer, but as a woman? "You're really good at this," he said quietly, breaking the quiet. His voice was deeper now, relaxed. "Most people just poke around. You actually know what you're doing." I let out a small laugh. Years of listening to customers complain about pain, I picked up a few things. My thumb circled a particularly tight spot near his shoulder blade. He groaned softly, and my breath caught. That sound, it did something dangerous to me. We started talking then, real talking, not the polite neighbor kind. He told me how his divorce had left him feeling like a failure for a long time, how his ex-wife always said he worked too much, cared too little. I found myself opening up too, telling him how my marriage had slowly gone cold, how I'd spent years smiling for everyone at the pharmacy while feeling invisible at home. "You don't seem invisible to me," he said after a pause. The words landed heavy. I stopped moving my hands for a second. My cheeks burned. I continued working lower down his back, trying to steady myself. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I moved around to his side so I could reach a different angle. Our knees almost brushed. When I leaned in, I could smell his scent. Clean soap mixed with that faint trace of workshop. My heart pounded so hard, I worried he might notice. "Audrey." He said my name so softly it made my stomach flutter. "You really didn't have to do any of this." "I wanted to," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "You always seem like you carry everything alone." He turned his head toward me again. Our faces were closer now. Close enough that I could see the tiny lines around his eyes, the way his gaze dropped to my lips for half a second before returning to my eyes. Neither of us moved. The silence stretched, heavy and electric. My breath felt shallow. Something inside me shifted, a warmth spreading low in my belly that I hadn't felt in so long. I should have pulled back. Instead, I stayed right there, my hand resting lightly on his lower back, not pressing anymore, just resting, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing. He reached up slowly and placed his hand over mine, not grabbing, just covering it gently. The contact sent heat racing up my arm. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I felt my pulse everywhere. "You're shaking," he murmured. "I know," I whispered back, embarrassed but unable to hide it. This feels too good. I wasn't expecting that." A small smile touched his lips. "Me neither." For a moment we stayed like that, my hand under his, the golden autumn light fading around us. It was just an almost touch, but it felt like so much more. My mind raced with 1,000 warnings, but my body leaned in anyway. Then the phone on the table buzzed loudly, breaking the spell. We both pulled back at the same time. I stood up quickly, smoothing my sweater, trying to catch my breath. Marcus rolled his shoulders and let out a long, satisfied sigh. "Audrey, that was incredible. I feel like a new man." I smiled, but inside I was trembling. The line between helpful neighbor and something far more dangerous had just blurred. Badly. And the scariest part? I didn't want to step back across it. If you've ever been this close to crossing a line with someone you know you shouldn't, tell me I'm not alone. And if this story is reaching you, please subscribe. I still have so much more to confess. I looked at him standing there, shirt still off, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. Our eyes met again, and this time, the look he gave me made my knees feel weak. I knew right then that nothing between us would ever feel the same again. I didn't move away. Even after the phone buzzed and we pulled back, I stayed standing close to him. The air between us felt different now. Thicker, warmer, like it was holding its breath along with me. Marcus slowly stood up from the ottoman. He was taller than I remembered, broader. He rolled his shoulders once, then twice, and let out a deep, satisfied sound that made my stomach tighten. "I can't believe how much better I feel already," he said, his voice low and rough. "It's like you melted the knots right out of me." I tried to smile, but my hands were still tingling from touching him. I crossed my arms over my chest, suddenly aware of how quiet the house had become. The golden autumn light had softened into a warm amber glow, casting long shadows across the living room floor. "You should probably sit down for a few minutes," I said softly. "Your muscles might feel a little loose at first." He nodded and lowered himself onto the couch. Instead of sitting across from him like I should have, I found myself sitting on the other end, close enough that our knees were only a foot apart. Too close. I knew it. But I didn't move. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavy, alive. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Marcus leaned back, watching me with those steady brown eyes. There was something in his gaze now that hadn't been there before. Gratitude mixed with something warmer. Something that made my breath catch. "Audrey," he said quietly, almost like he was testing my name. "Why are you being so kind to me?" I looked down at my hands. "Because I know what it feels like. The loneliness. The way your body carries everything, even when your mind is tired of it." He shifted slightly toward me. The couch creaked softly. His hand rested on the cushion between us, not reaching, just there. My eyes kept drifting to it, to the strong fingers, the faint scars from years of working with tools. I wondered what it would feel like if that hand touched me, just once. "You're different," he murmured. "Most people around here just wave and move on. You actually see me." My chest tightened. Heat rose slowly up my neck and into my cheeks. I felt my body reacting again, that deep, slow warmth spreading through me, the kind I thought had disappeared years ago. I shouldn't want this. I shouldn't be sitting here imagining things I had no right to imagine. But I stayed. Marcus leaned forward a little, resting his elbows on his knees. Our faces were closer now, close enough that I could see the small flecks of gold in his eyes, close enough to notice how his breathing had changed too, slower, deeper. I haven't let anyone touch me like that in, God, I don't even know how long, he confessed, voice barely above a whisper. Not since my ex-wife. And even then, it never felt like this. My breath hitched. I looked away, but he kept talking, soft and honest. "She was always in a rush, always complaining. But your hands are gentle, patient, like you actually care how I feel." He paused, then said the words that made everything inside me stop. "You're better than my ex-wife ever was, Audrey, and that scares the hell out of me." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs. My mouth felt dry. Something had shifted between us. A real crossing. Not just a friendly massage anymore. This was something else. Something dangerous and tender at the same time. I finally met his eyes again. Neither of us looked away. The golden light outside was fading, but the warmth in this room only grew. My body felt heavy with awareness, with want, with guilt, with 1,000 unspoken things. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but no words came. Instead, I just sat there, letting the heavy silence wrap around us like a secret we were both too afraid to name. And in that quiet moment, I realized I didn't want to step back. Not yet. I barely remember walking back across the street to my own house. My legs felt unsteady, like the ground had shifted beneath me. The cool autumn air brushed against my flushed cheeks, but it did nothing to calm the heat still burning under my skin. The moment I closed my door behind me, I leaned against it, eyes closed, breathing slowly. My hands were still warm from touching him. I could still feel the solid strength of his back, the way his muscles had relaxed under my fingers, the low sound he made when I found that tight spot. And those words, "You're better than my ex-wife ever was, Audrey," they kept echoing in my head. I walked into my quiet living room and sank onto the couch, pulling my knees up to my chest. The house felt too still, too empty. Everything reminded me of the silence we had shared just minutes ago. That heavy, dangerous silence where neither of us dared to move. Guilt hit me first, sharp and heavy. What was I thinking? He's my neighbor, just a man trying to heal from his own broken marriage. I had no right to let things go that far. No right to sit so close, to let his words sink into me like warm honey. I'm 43 years old. I should know better. I should be wiser than this. But then the desire came rushing back, softer and more frightening. I kept replaying every moment, the way he looked at me when he said my name, the gentle weight of his hand covering mine, how my body had reacted, that slow, deep warmth spreading through me, waking up parts of myself I thought had gone to sleep forever. I caught myself touching my own hand, remembering the feeling of his skin against mine. I shouldn't want more. I shouldn't be sitting here wondering what would have happened if the phone hadn't buzzed, if we had stayed in that moment just a little longer. Tears pricked at my eyes, not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming confusion. For years after my divorce, I told myself I was fine alone, safe, in control. But today, sitting on that couch with Marcus, I didn't feel in control at all. I felt alive, seen, wanted in a way that made my breath catch and my heart race. I stood up and walked to the window, looking across the street at his house. The lights were on. Was he thinking about me too? Was he feeling the same pull, the same dangerous curiosity? I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold everything in. The guilt and the longing fought inside my chest until I felt exhausted. Part of me wanted to pretend today never happened, go back to polite waves and small talk. But a bigger part, a quieter, hungrier part, already knew the truth. I wanted more. I wanted his voice saying my name like that again. I wanted the warmth of being close to him. I wanted to feel that shift inside me one more time. And that realization scared me more than anything. I turned away from the window, heart still racing, knowing that nothing between Marcus and me would ever feel simple again. That evening, as I stood in my kitchen making tea, I finally admitted it to myself. What happened between Marcus and me wasn't just a massage. It was the first time in years I felt truly seen. When he looked at me and said I was better than his ex-wife, something inside me gently broke open. I didn't pull away. I let myself feel it, all of it. I'm not proud of how much I wanted to stay in that moment with him, but I'm also not ashamed. After years of feeling invisible in my own marriage, after learning to live with loneliness, I allowed myself one afternoon of real human connection. His words, his touch, his honesty. They reminded me I'm still a woman who deserves to feel warmth, who deserves to be wanted. I don't know what will happen next. We haven't spoken since I left his house. But I caught him looking toward my window earlier tonight, and my heart did that same little flip again. This isn't over. Whatever this is, it's only beginning. If you've ever crossed a small line with someone and felt both terrified and alive at the same time, tell me honestly in the comments. Would you have stepped away, or would you have stayed, just like I did? If this confession touched something in your heart, please subscribe and stay with me. There's so much more I need to share. Because the truth is, I'm not sure I want this feeling to stop. Marcus and me